Hey guys! Today I'm going to be reviewing Tempest and Slaughter by Tamara Pierce. I was lucky enough to win an ARC of this book on Goodreads. The official release date, I believe, is February 6th. Now, I want to start off by saying that I have not read any of Tamara Pierce's books before this one. And this is going to be, I believe, a duology, but it may be a trilogy, and it's a prequel series to her Immortals quartet. And after reading this book, I'm kind of indecisive on whether I'll actually pick up that series or not. This book follows our main character, Aram Damper. If I'm saying his name correctly, I'm very unsure about the pronunciation for like everybody's name in this book. The beginning of the book starts off when Aram is 10 years old and he's going to start his next year at this mage university. He's also the youngest mage of this university, so he doesn't really have a whole lot of friends because the majority of them are jealous of the fact that he has the natural gift to exceed them in their classes. And since he has such a natural talent, it's not long before he's raising up in grade levels of the school. I say they're grade levels because I don't really know what else to call them. But once he starts raising up in the ranks, he's lucky enough to come across two people that are just as gifted as he is and are willing to be his friend, even with the age difference. I was undecided whether I give this book a 3 stars or 3.5 stars, but I ultimately went with just a 3 stars because even though I found the book incredibly easy to read and entertaining, it isn't something that I would probably reread. And it's not because the book wasn't good, it's just one of those books that I don't foresee myself rereading. And that's not the only reason this book got a 3 stars. When I go to rate a book, I normally have a list of everything that I liked and a list of everything that I didn't like. And to get above a 3 stars, what I liked has to outweigh what I didn't like about the book. Now, if they're evened out, they get a 3 stars. If they have it where what I didn't like was greater than what I liked, then it normally drops down to a 2 stars, 2.5. I normally don't give 1-star ratings. I only have one exception to that rule, and I'm not going to go into it in this video. But I'm going to start off by talking about what I liked about the book. The first thing I want to talk about is the world. I absolutely love the world, even though the time period was 435 to 439 HE, and I'm not really good at history, so I don't know what HE is. So if you know, you can let me know in the comments below. I just know it was a really long time ago. But it was pretty much set in the everyday mortal world. It just had these people who were called mages that could do magic. And not like one specific kind of magic, all of them had the ability to learn any kind of magic. Normally, they just choose to specialize in a certain area. When I went into this book, I was worried that there would be a lot of terminology that I just wouldn't understand, both because of the time period and the world setting, but there was actually a few terms time-wise that I didn't understand, and there's actually a glossary in the back of the book that goes over the terms and different definitions that the author has come up with. It's like one of the words in the glossary is Sunday, you know, the day of the week. And the definition says, Sun's day, the best day of the week to start new ventures. So except for the points where I was actually trying to work out certain things, certain mysteries that were happening in the book, I didn't really get confused at all. This book also had a lot of diverse characters. I watched a few spoiler-free reviews for her Immortal series because I'm still trying to decide whether I want to read it or not. And a lot of them talk about that series and her previous series and how diversity in those books isn't very prominent. And I noticed that in this book there was a lot of people from different religions and ethnics, and it was fantastic to see all of that represented in this book. And something else that is represented in this book that I am so happy about is gay relationships. One of the male professors, or masters as they're called in the books, is actually married to another male. He's actually called his husband, not significant other, not lover, husband. and I just really loved it. That was probably my favorite part in the book. And before that, I didn't really like that particular professor very much because we didn't know him so well at that point. But after that, I absolutely loved the guy. The last real important thing that I liked was our main character, Aram, and his pet bird, Preet. Normally you would think it'd be obvious to like the main character, but I've been watching more book reviews on BookTube here recently, and a lot of books have main characters that just people don't care very much for, and I've even read a book where I didn't hate the main character, but I didn't really care for them either. So I do feel that it's important to mention that I did love Aram. Mainly because he's such a sweet kid. I mean, we start the book out and he's 10 years old, and you watch him grow up to the 14-year-old he is at the end of the book. And there's actually such a dramatic change in his personality up to that point because, you know, everyone ages and their personality changes, but his core values, how innocent he is to the way things work politically, and how adamant he is not to hurt others. He doesn't want to be a battle mage, which from what I've heard of her other series, he actually is a battle mage. So it's going to be interesting to see how he goes from this point of not wanting to hurt people, almost adamantly refusing to learn anything that has to do with being a battle mage, to where he is in that series. And then Preet. You wouldn't expect a bird to have so much personality, and I don't know much about this type of bird, but I absolutely love Preet. She's actually so caring and protective and just flat out adorable. I was actually legitimately worried that after about 100 pages and Preet was still here, that NZ was going to show up and say that it was time for her to leave, or something bad was going to happen and she was going to be hurt. And it was just, I was never so happy to get to an end of the book, and just, she was okay. She was okay. That's all that mattered, was that she was okay at that point. Now let's talk about my least favorite things, which admittedly didn't start happening until like 120 pages into the book. The most prominent of those dislikes was the fact that the chapters got so long. It was like we went from like 10-page chapters to like 30-page chapters. And I'm not joking, there was legitimately a chapter that was 30 pages long, and I was pulling my hair out by the time I got to the end of it. Because I don't have a very large attention span. My brain goes in about 1,000 different directions at once, and 30-page chapters are just not for me. And something that really pushed down my rating for this book, because before this point I was thinking about giving it a 4 stars, is the fact that the other two kind of main characters of Varice and Ozorno, I don't know how to say his name. As the book went on, I found myself disliking these two characters a lot. Mostly Varice. And that was mainly because Varice was constantly throwing herself at Aram at different points in the book for almost no particular reason. She would get jealous, but in a manipulative kind of way where it wouldn't seem like she was jealous. And then she would actually flirt with people to get out of a situation, and when they are at the games in the arena, she was actually playing on the innocent act and doing some heavy gambling. And from what I understand, from what I read in the time skips in the book, that she actually does this a whole lot. And moreover, I liked her better as a friend, because her relationship with Aram, it seemed very fitting as a friendship, but it's like romance-wise, yes, Aram was very adamantly attracted to her from the very beginning, even though he was only like 10 years old, he was attracted to her. It's like, it's believable as a friendship, it's believable as in physical lust, but it just didn't strike me as believable as in a very permanent relationship. It's like I can see them in a relationship, but I don't foresee it being permanent. And my reason for not liking Ozorn was mainly because He was very overly obsessed with this one race that killed his father, and we find out the details behind all that later on in the book, so I'm not going to really go into it. But instead of taking it out on the people that actually did it, he wants to pretty much take it out on everyone of that race. Even if they had absolutely nothing to do with it, even if they were just like descendants of the people that live there, they haven't lived there in decades, doesn't matter. He wants to take it out on all of them. And he doesn't care about doing it in public either. It's like up until it got physical, I just overlooked it as, you know, a teenage boy just hating on the people who killed his father, which is understandable. But once it started getting physical, I couldn't overlook that, because that was just ridiculous. It should never escalated to that point. The last thing that I adamantly hated about this book was the arena. And that wasn't because of the way it was written or anything like that. It was basically everything that was happening in that arena. The reason it was happening, the way the gladiators or slaves, you might as well call them, are treated, the way the animals are treated, the crowd reacts to all this. And Ozorn goes into detail on why they can't get rid of the games. And I can understand why they can't get rid of it, but it's like I don't understand why these slaves have to have the living conditions that they have. I don't see why the animals are treated the way they are. I don't see why animals actually have to be a part of the games at all. But even though I hated the arena, it was very well constructed, and the blood and gore was very, very prominent. It was very, very gruesome. Didn't like that at all either, but it was so well written. I feel like the arena is just one of those places that you're meant to hate. And it is actually a very prominent setting. The only place you are really at more than the arena is the university itself. Something else that is more like a double-edged sword than a dislike is the time skips. Now, I understand why the time skips are necessary, because we start the book out, Aram is 10 years old, and by the end of the book, he's 14. So this book, this copy of the Ark, is 455 pages. So, like, we start out, he's 10 years old. Before you blink, he's 12, or he says he's 12 years old. Really? He said he was always a year younger than what he actually was. But this book spans over the course of 4 years, and really at first that was a little disorienting. I was reading the book and he was like 12 years old, and I was still picturing this little 10-year-old that's like a head shorter than everybody else, and it's just too adorable. And then he was like 13, and they were talking about how he was taller than most people now. I think the exact height we were given was 5'10", and I'm like, that is super tall. I'm 5'2", I'm a shrimp compared to you. And it's like, when did that happen? You were a midget about 100 pages ago. So it was very, very disorienting, and I couldn't really picture his character very well in my mind. But I understand why all of that time skipping was necessary, because you had to learn about his early years in the university to understand how he got to the point he was at, like when he got 13 or 14 years old. I do believe this is a duology, but I've heard some people say it's going to be a trilogy, so I'm not really sure. Do I plan to pick up the rest of the books in the series? Absolutely. There was briefly talk about a prophecy for Aram, and there was also a warning that Aram and Ozorn got from this graveyard hag. I can't really remember what her real name is, but they call her the graveyard hag, and she gave them both a warning. And they were very straightforward warnings, so kind of afraid of that. I would prefer it to be like a warning where I actually had to figure out what it meant, but these are really, really straightforward, and that scares me more than anything. But that is everything that I can say about Tempest and Slaughter without spoiling you guys. So I will leave a link to the Goodreads page in the description box below, just in case you want to learn more about the book or you want to read other people's reviews for it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!